Will, thank you so much for
Great.
doing this. Thank you so much for bringing together, for bringing Rob, have partnerships, and the founder of an organization we're going to learn more about into this conversation.
That's right. Our pleasure.
Let me give you space for the virtual stage here.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll take it. And I do miss seeing you in person. This is sort of the next best thing, and you do an incredible job of packing the schedule and leading discussion. So yes, we've got the next 50 or so minutes, and for sure, if the discussions continue and you're open to it, I'm happy to stay on the line and continue. But I wanted to introduce a little bit myself. I'm from Silicon Valley. I loved how you each said about where you were from and the activities you do. So I've been born and raised in California. I spend year-round outdoors. I've got an 11-year-old daughter, 9-year-old son. So we rent lots of skis and buy skis and use them. I'm also an avid mountain biker. So I've got an old specialized stump jumper that I take on a lot of single track trails through the redwoods out here. Was just out at Skeggs Point, which is a very famous spot, for a few hours yesterday. And it's a great perspective in these times. It's great to be able to get out and enjoy the outdoors. Obviously a very robust community around technology and retail in this space. And for the past 3 years, I've been working for a family office, Plug and Play, leading globally as the VP their retail innovation platform, which is the largest of its kind. So I'm a little visual. I'm going to share some slides with you. I'm going to give a quick presentation around where we've invested in some of our corporate programs. Then I'm going to kick it to Andy and Rob, who've joined me. They're one of my favorite startups around the retail space and the future of retail and e-commerce. They're going to share a little bit about what they do, and then we can have a bit of a discussion. But let's kick this off here. My desktop. All right. Get into presentation mode. If Zoom lets me get my cursor. There we go. Welcome. The mission at Plug and Play is centered around helping the entire world progress through innovation and connection. It's a mission that I think resonates with many groups and organizations throughout the world. I think what's different with Plug and Play is the startups are always very much at the center of what we do, and we're very action oriented. So we're very focused on what happens after the connection is made. So what that means here is a lot of different activities, but it's important to understand the history of Plug and Play. The family started out in the early .com boom with a lot of different businesses located in the heart of what was to become Silicon Valley. So what you're seeing here is part of their real estate portfolio. They owned a building right on University Avenue in the heart of Palo Alto next to Stanford University, and many tech companies like Google worked out of that building. And the family was able to see these companies grow and invest in them and realize the future was really around technology and these tech startups. So Google went from about 4 to 40 employees in the Plug and Play building. Still in our portfolio, it's called the Lucky Building, 165 University Avenue. You can see Marissa Meyer in the back row. Omid Kurdistani's in the front on the phone. He helped write the business plan, the very first one for Google. So that was where we're from, done a lot of different things, have not always been successful. We've learned from our failures and learned from our attempts to build these innovation ecosystems. So if you want to learn more about what we've tried and what didn't work, feel free to ask. Some of the things that did work around the investments include the logos you see here. They do span a wide range of topics. Mostly they're enterprise software, but there's some hardware things, there's new business models. One of my favorite days at Plug and Play last 3 years was last year. I was sitting at my desk and someone walked by, asked if I heard the news on TechCrunch that PayPal was going to buy Honey for $4 billion. And Plug and Play was the very first $50,000 into Honey back in 2014. The two founders, Ryan and George, had come into the office. One of them was part-time with the idea. We had to convince our CEO to put the money in. He's very happy he did, because that 50K turned into somewhere around 40 million over that period of time. Now that's a Huge success, and those are very few and far between. They take years. So if you're an early stage investor and you're looking to fund these entrepreneurs, the more likely than not they will fail, or they'll face challenges, or in the very best scenario it takes years to get that return. But when it does, it's an incredible thing to celebrate. Today, the things that we do at Plug and Play focus around these three main areas. We do a lot. So if you go to the website and do some research, it's hard to walk away with what we do. I like to break it down here. Most active investor in early startups in Silicon Valley and sometimes the world. Over 200 investments per year. It's not even slowing down that much given the environment because we're finding entrepreneurs are adapting. Certain categories are growing like crazy, and they're looking for funding to fuel that growth. So it gives us a great idea of what entrepreneurs are doing, what problems they're solving, and we get an incredible amount of deal flow coming through to get to those 200 investments we make. We do corporate innovation. We work with now over 400 corporations, running accelerators to just matchmaking with startups. That happens all over the place, all over the world. And then 50 dedicated accelerator programs we run. These are open innovation programs. They're all based on industry. So I run retail. I also co-founded our media and advertising. So some of that marketing stuff, we do that in a program now too. And this is where you have large companies that are together in an industry. Sometimes competitors join. They pick a common theme or themes, and we run for 3 months a program. And the output of that, ideally, is you find startups with solutions off the shelf for that theme that you can be their customers, right? That's great. Commercial deals that get signed, pilots, POCs, commercial rollouts. Maybe you co-develop something, or potentially you could strategically invest in those startups or look at acquisitions. So it's all those mix of activities come out. We find the people who get the most out of these programs are doing all of those, but it's hard to get set up. Sometimes someone will join one of these programs, not do anything, and just learn for the first year. But those are the activities that Plug and Play focuses on. If you look just at the investment space, we're primarily very early stage, and they're all related. We get share insights and learnings across all the activities, but where we invest, we might not limit our portfolio companies to the ones that we have in our accelerator programs. Those accelerator programs could come from all different stages. But you can see here a little breakdown around pre-series A, seed, pre-seed. So these are companies that they don't really have the MVP or the go-to-market yet. They're working on the idea, they're building it out, they're looking for families. So it's a totally different investment structure. There's very little financials to go off of. A lot of times it's who's the founding team, what kind of early traction do they have in terms of, pre-signing up customers, and what the investors look like today. Is there a strong lead investor, and who are they? In general, we would invest around $100,000 per company and do over 200 investments per year. So a lot of capital put into this ecosystem. A lot in the US, but also a lot internationally as well. Now, the corporate industry programs, besides brand and retail, we do have fintech and all the other ones you see here, which is pretty unique to Plug and Play. We play in so many different industries that we not only get consumer insights here, but the technology we get and the startups we get might come from inspiration and innovation happening outside of the industry program that we're in. So in brand and retail, supply chain and logistics is huge. We see a lot of great technology from there that we borrow and put into our program. Fintech too, around payments, really, really cool. And then vice versa. Mobility, which is automotive, right? They might have their own stores and take inspiration from some of the things that happen in the brand and retail program. So all these programs are happening simultaneously, and we coordinate it so that they'll all have programming happen at the same time. So if you come and see one, you can often see many others. Here are the locations that we work out of. And this is important for you too, because in these locations, we have big companies, so we have great insights around what problems they want to solve and consumer trends. But this is where I draw my sort of insight. So any trends, any information, any sort of knowledge I'm kind of sharing with you comes from the activities that are happening from brand and retail across these locations here. Particular focus in Europe is Paris and in Munich. We have very strong programs there. and in Shanghai and Beijing in China, and recently Tokyo. Those are the main kind of global epicenters where I see the most future of retail happening. We also have these sessions, these private sessions where we have the big companies give us a problem or solution. Maybe it's an area they want to learn about. Maybe it's an area they have a burning need right now they need to solve for, like how do I liquidate inventory that's just sitting in warehouses now because my stores aren't open. And we facilitate a session where they meet startups. Usually it's a couple hours, 30 minutes per one-on-one per startup. And ideally they walk away with a solution. We did that 1,830 times last year. So we get a lot of these repetitions, a lot of expertise in making sure that we're bringing relevant people together. And again, that's where I kind of draw a lot of these insights from. So brand and retail specifically, the mission is around positive change focused on the next generation of the consumer. And today it seems like everyone wants to know about the post-COVID consumer, right? So we can talk a little bit about that. But it's again focusing on ideas and innovation that's going to captivate them and really drive that future shopping experience. Here are some of the corporations we work with, over 60 specific to brand and retail and commerce. It is a large category, so we define it very broadly. We do a special retail. We also have discount and general department. We have fashion, very strong, robust fashion network. Usually there's common themes that apply across everything. That's where we really stand out, as those common themes that apply everywhere. In Silicon Valley specifically, it's our longest running program. We've ran now 13 batches. We're going to be on batch 14, and each one has been dead. Don't worry about reading these icons, by the way, but the idea is each one of these groups had its own set of themes. So I can highlight some of the themes of the recent ones for you. If you go back to batch 0, this was mapping the inside of the store just so that customers could wayfind and find out what's on what shelf. Then it went to robots. There were robots wandering through the stores, scanning shelves or helping people check out. Then there was beacons. Beacons were everywhere. That was like batch 3. Personalization started showing up. A lot of technology moved into fitting rooms. Sustainability and circular economy started rising up. So each one had a different set of themes and a different group of startups. So today's themes, this was the pre-COVID theme. And we just had the graduation for this about a month ago. And it was about the store of the future. So it was understanding in retail when someone walked into the store or when someone went online on your app, you knew who they were. And you could then tailor the experience to them. And it did not mean necessarily giving them total convenience, right, where they can just grab and go. Certainly if that's what they were looking for, yes, but if they wanted more human interaction, more clienteling, then that's what it meant. It just meant letting them get the experience they wanted without having to wait or without too much friction. So that meant the best of online with the best of the offline and merging those together. It meant if that person was interested in the value around sustainability and sustainable models, then providing that. A lot of education and personalization experience. So if it was a new product that required a lot more education, how did you provide that experience to the consumer? All that leading into this sort of future store experience. What we saw is that the startups in the program that had tech in these areas, once they did the graduation last month, many of them have pivoted to focus on reopening strategies, health and safety of the workers and the consumers as part of that store of the future experience. You are since Nikki, since I love you so much and you've been such an incredible group to work with throughout the years, you are the very first people seeing this. This is our upcoming batch. So it hasn't been announced or made public at all, but our next batch and what the interests are is it's very unique for me. I've seen so many of these, and the way they've gone in the past is they've been focused more on a single theme. Now, so many retailers are interested in so many different topics. Everything is now super urgent that we've had to spread out the focus areas in order to include everybody. So I've done my best to bucket them in here, but inventory management is huge. You got it. Dealing with the volatility in demand. So you know that you've got a lot of stuff in stock now that maybe was in the off season, different season. So what do you do with once the people come back to stores? How do you move what's already in the inventory placed now? Maybe that's through rentals, liquidation, wholesale, other models. What do you do with it if your warehouses are at capacity? On the flip side, when people come back, what's their demand going to be, and how do you meet that? So how do you manage the volatility around inventory? And we found that people who have had very flexible inventory management systems have been doing a little bit better, but it's a struggle for everyone. E-commerce enablement has been huge. So this has put a highlight on retailers who have not had a strong e-commerce play. Some have, and it's just not economical. So how do you find solutions to optimize that? It seems like it's not an option to just not have e-commerce. You need to have something online. How do you do it well? And how do you make money off of it? That's huge. So a lot of things around localization, around creating content for items. So where do you look for content? Are you looking for the way people talk about and review the products online and using that to then generate what content you do online? It's a very rich category of technology, a lot of great solutions there. New experiences, right? So if you come back in and there's a focus on hygiene, we've gotten a lot of requests around touchless technology. So things that let you discover, purchase items with limited interaction with people. So that means interaction with robots and other tech. It's been very, very interesting. A lot of things for temperature counting. So can you point something at someone and check their temperature before they walk into the store, whether they're a customer or a worker? People counters and population counters, those types of things. And of course, moving everything into virtual or augmented reality. And then a lot around sustainability. Sustainability has been huge for people focused on it. In terms of taking advantage of the opportunity down the road. Some of the other buckets are urgent for near term. Right now, I need. Sustainability is more like, you don't want to lose sight of this. Let's make sure we take advantage and move things forward. But it has been a little bit less urgent for some. Of course, the things that we're getting asked for is marketing around specific causes, given all the social dynamics in the US in particular and worldwide, social giving. And we always get asked for, hey, plug and play, just what in general are you seeing in your network that is new? So that was a lot. I guess what I'll do right now is pause a little bit for some questions. And I do have a few more to get through that dives into our investment piece. But before I do, I've been doing a lot of talking. So I did want to give you a chance if you had any questions on some of the things that I've brought up to ask.
I wonder did I miss it, or the checkout free, the seamless checkout?
Yeah, there's so many names. Yeah, so in the new experiences here, frictionless and touchless technology that's specifically for checkout.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's many companies in there. So there's Grabango, Zippin, MishiPay in EU, Standard Cognition raised a ton of money. It's not clear to us when we look at this space in the grab and go tech, like which technology is going to be the winner in terms of, is it going to be, the cameras that deal with the work? Is it going to be RFID? Is it going to be other contactless payments tech? So it's not clear which one's going to, a hybrid of all those. A lot of people have tried to solve this from the startups, create their own mini formats of stores, or lockers. There's a whole different set of models there. It's a very hot space, and a lot of, even Amazon now, they just announced they're going to start licensing their Amazon Go technology. Be wary of that. But yeah, it's a very rich, active space. We're seeing a lot of experimenting in there. Not really clear yet which type of tech or which startup is going to be the winner.
How long do you think it still takes until that technology is in stores?
It does depend on your customer. So if your customer is the one who is really tactical and just wants to get in and out, then it's going to happen faster because they'll migrate themselves to the experiences that provide that. And if that's the case, then it's happening today. So we're seeing concept stores and real stores, even in Europe, have this technology. Ahold Delhaize has tested it. A couple of media markets, Saturn has tested it with their Saturn Express. Might have even been in Austria. So there's a couple stores that are live with the technology today. When it becomes
operation and Amazon Go is opening one store after the other.
But it's still early, right? I think when it goes mass retail, we're still probably in the 3 to 5 years out before it goes large scale adoption. But the technology certainly is ready for you to start testing with it if you aren't already.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, and if you have more questions, feel free to stop me. So when Plug and Play invests, we look at certain infrastructure areas and foundational technology elements, because what we used to do is invest in really cool, fancy things that looked amazing. A lot of AI and machine learning things years ago were really, really cool, but you couldn't leverage them because you didn't have the data infrastructure available that they relied on. So as an investor, we put our money more into those things that allowed you to do cool things. So Artifact and Opal, for example, lets you create a lot more data science models with a single team than you could otherwise. So those foundational technologies are really, really interesting, which means now today we can do some really cool things. Supply chains are critical. So if you need to be flexible, if you need folks to order things quickly and fulfill on that, if you needed the post-purchase experience to be seamless in terms of returns, if it was complex, then you needed a way to manage that in addition to your traditional 3PL or other providers. So we like to invest in that space. And then we do invest into direct consumer brands. So you look at folks like Naadam. This is a founding team where they ended up going to Mongolia, and they met the shepherds that had herds that created the wool for use in cashmere clothing. But the cashmere clothing production life cycle and supply chain was so complex and so many steps, they made very little money, and they never really saw the end consumer what their needs were. So these founding team built their own direct brand, Naadam, and they worked directly with the independent individual shepherds to do it. And they've been growing like crazy. Our view of the retail world has definitely evolved. It's gone from a stage where it was purely demographic and you had mailers and magazines sent to the home. And so I would just get here at home and flip through the magazine. It would be based on my interest. That's why I'd subscribe, I'd make a purchase, and I'd get it shipped to me. Then it went to suburban shift where you had these shopping centers and malls, and everything was in one place. You have your flagship anchor stores. You go there, you get everything you want. Huge commerce revolution. Then everything moved much more urban. You have these urban high streets and fashion areas where everyone came in and it was much more of an experience. And it moved then, now we're seeing to multi-channel, multi-format. And what we mean by that is not only do you have all these different channels and modes of retail all mixed up together, but you have the offline and online worlds really merging together. So you're going to have your direct-to-consumer brands. You're going to have your stores where you can go view them and see them. You're still going to have your malls. It's just everything happening all together. You can see a picture there of Beta, which gives, a physical platform for a lot of digital only products to be shown and discovered by consumers. The tracks that lead us there are going to fall, I believe, in these main categories. So based on activity, as I've mentioned before, we see a lot of traction here. Grab and go technology, we talked about. Mass customization, so how do I create an experience and a product for a segment of one? Last mile and buy online, pick up in store. I think that's going to be very foundational technology. A lot of things happening there. AI-driven pricing, marketing, and content. We get to hear more about that later. Huge opportunity, very, very cool stuff happening in that space. Post-purchase and returns. Not only is that a critical part of the customer journey, but it's also one where people are very engaged. So if you have other marketing or communications you do, this is a critical moment. And then everything in circular economy, which does include new business models. So I wanted to highlight that piece next, which is the circular model. I would include some of the rental models within this as well. Huge area for us as retailers and with your manufacturers to reduce some of the waste. And what that really means is these are closed loop product life cycles. So when something's made, it's then being used and then reused or recycled into the same type of product. So there's never anything that's leaving that system and creating some kind of waste in the world. So some terms you hear around that is upcycling, reusing, re-commerce, certainly rental and sharing. And the technology trends driving that are totally new business models. and new materials in manufacturing. In some cases, if you recycle or upcycle some material, there's only some materials that you're able to do that with, and some that you're not. So how do you produce more products that have more of those good types of materials? So highlighting a few startups in this space, 4 Days is a apparel company, and they let you pay a little bit more for a daily t-shirt, but when you're done with it, you send it back. They make it into a new shirt and send it back. So it's swapping it out. There's no loss of product there. Challenge there with that kind of model is scale. Very hard to scale that business model today. Stuffster, there's a lot of places like Stuffster now. We love Stuffster, Restore, Yurtle. These are ones that allow you to basically white label a store for rentals or for reuse. A lot of used reselling happenings on these digital platforms. Really great, robust space right now. Wardrobe, another one specifically in fashion, but again, enabling rental for influencer marketing and closets. There's a lot of that. Open up your closet and let folks rent out your apparel. So again, it's lengthening the time and lengthening the product usage out of the products you already own today. All right, I'm probably over my section. Yes, so what I'd like to do now is I'm going to stick around. Certainly, if you have any questions on here, ask them now, but I'm going to switch it over to Andy and Rob, who've been so kind to join, and I want to make sure they get a turn to present what they do.
And I'll
so
also
before
you guys
go ahead.
Session, so you can always take it from there. As I always say, this is the beginning of a new conversation.
Fantastic. So thank you. Like I said, so I'll stick around. If you have any questions, ask me now. I'll wait a few seconds and then I'll introduce Andy and Rob.
Will, you talked about learning from failure, and you talked about 200 investments of about $100,000, and you talked about honey rising from 50K to 40 million. What is the ratio of good and bad investments? I mean, is it for one honey, or one honey is just a one-timer, or is it out of 100 investments, one comes out in that way? How is
yeah, great question. And you'll hear a lot of literature and stories coming out of Silicon Valley about this, because the venture capitals who have raised a lot of money really focus on their home runs. So they focus on the exception, because you get one of those and that can make your whole fund. For Plug and Play, about 1% of our portfolio companies make it into that unicorn club. So 10% make it into 100 million plus. Now, in general, though, the ecosystem, when you're very early, 90% plus will fail, right? So the very early stage startups, a lot of high risk. So they do that really well and even find those winners. It's hard to have access to those deals and those opportunities. And it's really hard to determine and filter the ones that are going to work out. But it certainly is a numbers game. And for Plug and Play, it's about 1% of our portfolio eventually will make it into that unicorn club.
And if you say failing, do you see people again? I mean, coming with one idea, failing,
yes,
then being back with another idea?
We do. We absolutely do, and we love that. It is so hard to build a company. We'd rather have someone who's got experience building a company than someone who's just really academically smart or bright. It is incredibly, it's hard to have a good idea, but then to make that idea into a business, you have to have tried it. And for us, failure is just as much of a relevant experience than success. You learn a lot from trying and building a company and failing, and you do it again. So, you know, it's what you've learned, what you've taken away from that, but certainly people who have failed and come back, totally natural in our ecosystem. In fact, we encourage people to go out there and try.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, I've done so much talking. Andy and Rob, you've been very patient listening to me this whole time. I want to give it over to you. Andy is the founder and CEO of Commerce AI. Rob is his head of partnerships and business development. You guys, I'm going to stop sharing now so you can take over the screen, but the virtual floor is all yours.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Will. This is very, very inspiring, and to hear from 10,000 foot view about how the world is changing, how the economy is changing, and how the startups are bringing opportunity. We are one of the startups. We are Commerce AI. We are a portfolio company, so that means we are one of those funded by Plug and Play after the acceleration. I'll hand over to Rob, but before I just wanted to give an overview of what what our vision is, and to start with my personal background a little bit, because I see all these beautiful mountains, and it reminded me of my childhood. I actually grew up in India in the middle of forest, and I participated in a lot of outdoor activities, including rock climbing. Also counted leopards as part of the forest initiative. So a lot of interesting things. But then later on, got exposed to technology and realized that Silicon Valley is the place to be in. So moved here 20 years back. Got lucky to be in Stanford around so many inspiring people. And at some point, everybody here decides to start a company, and I started my last company a few years back. Was in the fashion tech space. We were lucky to get that acquired by Flipkart Group at some point. You might have heard Flipkart was acquired by Walmart for 16 billion or so. So I went through that journey of successful acquisition. But I realized, along with my co-founders, that there is an interesting opportunity coming up. So decided to get out of the acquired Walmart and pitch the idea of Commerce AI to start the company. And the big idea we saw is that AI was coming up. And what is AI? AI is basically learning from data, learning from patterns. Like humans are learning, can machines learn from data? And that's 2015 towards 2015, 2016 when we started the company. AI was just beginning to come up, and we looked at whether it's supply chain related, or it's an e-commerce content related question, or it's related to product design. Any problem in the brand and retail space boils down to data. And so can we use data as in the data generated by consumers, end consumers? Can we understand these data to solve supply chain problems, to solve product design, to solve marketing, everything that boils down to decisions in e-commerce drive from data. And for years and years, our human mind were trained with small amount of data, but with machines, they can use large amount of data and have smarter decisions. And there was this high level team that we started with. So right now we are 4 years old. We just raised our third round of funding. We're raising small rounds, but we raised a third round just before the COVID. And especially COVID, everything is moving e-commerce. It's giving us a lot more opportunity. We've signed up a lot of new customers, Coca-Cola, Jockey, and Rob will talk about the opportunities we have. So, we are lucky to be part of the Plug and Play ecosystem, and helping our customers through different phases and different problems that they have. Happy to come back in and answer questions if you have anything about how startups life is and how do you balance success and failure. But right now I want to hand it over to my colleague, Rob, who's an incredible team member who's going to talk specifically about what Commerce AI does.
Great. Thank you, Andy. So I'm going to just kind of give some context for what our platform is and what we do through a short deck. In the interest of time, I may move quickly, but feel free to stop me if there's questions. So we like to think of our platform as a product and service intelligence platform. And I'll explain kind of what we mean by that. But essentially what we're doing is we're building AI models that are trained on customer feedback data. And this is across many different e-commerce categories of products. So we could be talking about shoes or jackets, any kind of sporting goods. Could we be talking about snacks, dishwashers? It doesn't matter. We're training these AI models on category-specific customer feedback data. As Andy alluded to, we were started with the help of Walmart a few years ago. They remain an important partner and client for quite obvious reasons. Team is primarily Stanford and MIT folks, really strong data science, technology, and business teams. The big problem we're setting out to solve here is there's this huge amount of customer feedback that's shared online by consumers every day. They're leaving product reviews, they're talking about their taste, their preferences in social media channels, blogs, forums. There's so many outlets where customers can share their thoughts and ideas. And what our platform is really setting out to do is apply structure to this type of data and provide brands, consumer product companies, and retailers the insights to help them make informed decisions. So we focus on a few different kinds of data. This could be internal data, whether that's customer support sort of data. This could be call center data in some cases. Really, but any kind of direct communication that a retailer is having with their customer, there's an opportunity to analyze that data to gather insights. So it could also be external data. So this is generally publicly available data, whether that's product reviews in any e-commerce channel, social media data, could be blogs, forum posts. So any kind of data that we can gather and analyze. And the third kind of data is this voice feedback data. So we have basically a survey type of app that allows us to solicit feedback directly from consumers. This could be kind of an in-store experience survey. This could be like a focus group kind of survey. This could be a post-purchase or post-visit survey. So the use cases here actually vary quite a bit. So if we look at like the product review, or this could be a customer experience kind of a review, but what is a customer doing when they're writing a product review? Really, they're highlighting the things about their experience that matter most to them. So they're kind of prioritizing these things that have importance to them. And when we do this across an entire category, we really can kind of benchmark each product or service company against the competition. And this is really the core of what we do. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of moving quickly, but in the interest of time. Okay. Feel free to interject if you have questions. Really, the purpose of our platform is to drive innovation. And so all of these different cross-functional teams really stand to benefit from better understanding, not only your customer, but your competition and your competition's customer. And so, whether we're talking about product management or merchandising or assortment or quality, everybody stands to benefit. I'll just touch on a few use cases quickly. So Unilever is using the platform to identify gaps and white spaces in their product portfolio. Midea, which is one of the largest appliance manufacturers in the world, is using the tool primarily for competitive analysis. So they're looking at several different product categories in a couple different regions of the world, actually, to do extensive competitive analysis so that they can kind of prioritize new feature development in their next generation of appliances. The USPS is using our voice feedback app in store, and primarily the innovation team is using it to test new product and service ideas with customers. Walmart, their initial use case, and this was several years ago, and the platform's evolved quite a bit over the last few years. But initially, it was more of a merchandising use case where they really wanted to optimize their product catalog descriptions to reflect, how consumers are really talking about these products and services. So, kind of using the tool to identify verbiage and syntax that helps kind of best describe the product catalog. A lot of other use cases, which we can go into detail on. Here are some current customers of ours. So I should also note the platform is multi-language. So, we have about 20 more languages in beta, but currently in production we support 9 right now. And that's it for the canned deck. I'll open it back up to questions if anyone has any.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob.
And I can show a few screens from our dashboard as well, if we have a few more minutes. And obviously, I know we're kind of pressed for time, but we're happy to schedule a follow-up if anyone has an interest in learning more about the platform and what we're doing. But feel free to jump in if anyone has questions. But this is the basic gist of our platform. So we generally like to analyze e-commerce data, and we can gather data from any e-commerce platform all over the world. This happens to be an example dashboard that we've built from Amazon ratings and review data. So essentially what we've done is gathered all of the products and reviews from the athletic socks category on Amazon. So so all of the brands and products are accounted for. There's a drop down here where you can drill into any brand that you want to look more closely at. But just at a high level, we've gathered almost 300,000 reviews, almost 5,000 products, and there's a lot of different, modules and aspects of the platform we can dig into deeper. But, at a high level, we highlight top brands, top products. It's really easy to identify, the brands that are trending, the products that are trending. So from an assortment standpoint, really gather detailed information about what customers are really interested in and engaged in and buying online to make assortment decisions and also product development decisions as well. So I won't spend too much time on this, but are there any questions I can address for anyone? Can really focus in on the attributes of the products that people care about. So again, this is an athletic socks dashboard, and we highlight, okay, what are the attributes that customers are talking about most in this category, and the breakdown of positive versus negative comments with regards to those attributes. We can compare different brands for different attributes. So here I have Adidas, Nike, and Puma, some set of attributes, and we can get really detailed analysis on, okay, what do people like about these brands, and answer the question really, why are certain products trending? Get high level category trends to make sure that, you're leveraging and taking advantage of, what the latest, hottest thing in the category is.
Are these brands you compare here at the last sheet? Are they interested in this data, or do you gave the data to them, or do they buy for this?
Very, yeah. So we work with retailers as well as brands. And a lot of retailers have their own private label products as well. And so, yeah, I mean, everyone's really now trying to understand, what makes products successful and really why. Because you need to ensure that, both your assortment and your product development are aligned to that, depending on if you're a retailer or a product maker. But yeah, I mean, there's huge interest in our data from the brand side as well.
And then if you, so you have both retailers and products, manufacturers, vendors that are on your platform. And if they are a customer, a paying customer, they get to see everything, right? They get to see the full category. Exactly.
So, if you're a retailer, maybe you want to understand. If you're Walmart, maybe you want to know what's going on Amazon, right? And if you're Nike, maybe you want to understand, okay, why is Adidas winning in, running shoes the last 3 months? So this sort of competitive analysis that we can provide, because of our approach and doing this, casting a wide net of data gather is really kind of core to our value proposition.
Rob, I would have one more question. So at which level of a company does that system make sense? Just to explain, like we're franchising Intersport as independent shop owners, so to say, and we can buy goods from Intersport in their wholesaler portfolio from different companies. Like Intersport sets their portfolio where they put different ski brands, different clothes brands in, and where we can buy in the group from Intersport directly with better prices. So would you say in that case Intersport could use such a system to enhance their portfolio to better give us a targeter and a more competitive portfolio of brands which meets more directly customer needs in that case? Or do you say even you as an independent, even me as an independent, like small shop with like in 2 villages, right? It's like not a big company in comparison to the huge big players, could even use such a system?
Yeah, typically we license the platform at the corporate level. There's no per user fees. So once Intersport licensed it, everybody within the organization would have access to it. So I mean, I would. Does that answer your question?
You more or less the company itself, Intersport, the bigger company would need to like apply that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it also depends on how wide the data you want to understand. Like if it's a Intersport, they would like to know bigger picture. If you're looking at the individual shop owners or business owners, they can use a smaller set of data. So there's, it's a self-serve platform, so you could go any level up and down. I think there's a lot more in the platform. I'm not sure we have enough time, but Rob, if you want to quickly switch over to the report, that'll be good.
Yeah, sure. So we've also done some extensive analysis on sort of post-COVID. Oops. Is everybody able to see this?
Yeah, if you really.
No, we see.
Okay, great. So we've done extensive analysis just based on really the time period of beginning of this year to understand, the trends and the categories that are having success, post-COVID. And we're happy to share this with everyone if there's interest. We touch on, a lot of different of the top categories that have been impacted by the virus. I mean, we all know, the shift is accelerating towards e-commerce, but lots to learn by, kind of taking a closer look at, what's trending in these.
Yeah, something that's close to outdoors and sports activities.
Yeah, we can. I'll share this. I don't know if we covered outdoor in this.
So it may not be in this report, but there are several different reports. We can send that report which covers. So basically, we're taking a big picture and see what categories are trending, why they're trending up and down.
Yep. Any other questions I can address for anybody?
All right. Any other questions about startups in general? I know this is very specific to may not apply or may not apply. But if you have questions, usually we get questions about, how startups are, how the innovation works, and in the context of today's presentation, happy to talk about anything that you would love us to talk about.
I think it's a lot of information to process. We're on the other end of the day. It's 8 p.m. here. So don't misunderstand silence with ignorance or with not being interested. It's seriously, it's like intake, compartmentalize it somehow and understand what this is all about. I think this is just an amazing capturing of untapped information. How's maybe one thing, maybe I've missed this, and if you say I've mentioned this, then just don't re-mention it, then it was just me. But I'm curious in what day one, like, right? There's no technology in the store. How does day one look like to start getting that information? How much is interaction to the last mile to the customer, rather than just mining social activities around your peers, communities, and on?
Yeah, so I mean, we there's several different kinds of use cases we can imagine. There's obviously just understanding general e-commerce trends for products and brands online, to sort of align your assortment and ensure that you're meeting the needs of the people that are buying online in your stores. We could also look at, we've done a lot of analysis on, like Google reviews for store locations. So people, analyzing people's experience based on the review of your store. That's another way to look at this. But, we gather a lot of data. This is one of our core competencies. So generally, before we even get to day one, we work with the client to understand, okay, hey, what are we trying to learn? Where might we find the insights and the answers to the questions that we have? And then based on that, that's how we sort of determine, okay, what data do we need to gather, and what's the foundation of the analysis that we're going to put into this dashboard?
So interesting. Yeah, so interesting. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing.
Yeah, we know it's kind of a lot to take in, so we're happy to schedule a follow-up if there's interest in learning more. I'm sure Plug and Play can connect us.
Yes, I was just going to say that, Rob. Absolutely. I'll be connecting over email, do a little introduction after this session, and thank you so much. It's really, really interesting. I love it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Enjoy your day.
I have a question to Will.
Yes.
Sorry. Well,
that's okay.
At Plug and Play, well, we were now really deep in the retail part, but are you guys also doing something in terms of traveling, tourism? Because what our focus on our customers here is of this group of dealers is clearly on people traveling to the Alps to do sports there, either to be in winter or to hike in summer, or to bike in the summer. So are you guys also, don't get me wrong, it was really interesting, Rob and Andy. It's not, please don't get me wrong, but just on another turn, if there's something going on in the travel industry, tourism world in terms of startups,
Yeah, let me show you a quick overview of that program. I've got it queued up here. And it is a broad category, so tourism is a piece of it. But for travel and hospitality, we do run programs across, our headquarters in Silicon Valley, but in Geneva with IATA, Vienna with Vienna International Airport, Abu Dhabi, Shanghai, Singapore. So these are all places where we have travel programs currently. And here are some of the people we work with. So the insights and the startups are really particular to these types of corporations, which you can see are the core travel operators. So a lot of airlines, a lot of airports, some around the experiences like Yotel, and some associations, but certainly in these categories are very strong. Some of the focus areas include what's going to happen beyond your loyalty program. How do you personalize the experience and enhance engagement and loyalty with your travel consumers, particularly around the customer journey of purchasing your travel plans. A seamless journey, and this is a lot of the overlap with retail around seamless experiences, particularly in airports. They're looking for ways to capture people who are maybe departing their flight and just want to get out. How do you maybe have that as an interesting experience around commerce? Also the club experiences themselves within the airports, and then new revenue streams and business models, huge area of focus within the program. Security and safety, a lot of tech, particularly again in the airports around security, people counting, detection, etc. Operational efficiencies, this is common in every program. It's how do we use the technologies to drive efficiencies in our own business, and then what types of disruption are we seeing? So that's, the quick high-level overview over the travel program. If you're interested specifically around tourism, I think what I could do is just like Rob mentions, we could bring in our travel team in a follow-up discussion and talk a little bit more about that. But hopefully it gives you a little sense of what we do there.
Thank you.
Any more questions from you guys? Mr. Overload.
I would have one more question. You work a lot with, or only with startups, right? And yesterday I read an interesting book called The Future is Faster Than You Think. And there they explain that a company usually has a lifespan of 30 years these days. Well, Intersport is here for longer now, and our family business is here for longer now, so that wave hasn't quite reached us yet. But what do you think of the future? Will it be possible for traditional companies to still survive, or will just at one point any sector will be disrupted over and over again?
It's a great question, and I think you don't have to go too far to find, what I would think and what some other experts in this space think when they think about disruption and the longevity of certain business models and large enterprises in particular. Intel Capital is the longest running corporate venture capital group in the world, and their view in setting that up was part of three pieces of their R&D. So the core R&D of their business, they had their M&A and corporate development, and those two were inside and outside, right? So if there's an outside disruption, they go buy it. If there's an internal, talent and research new product, they'll build it. The corporate venture capital arm was structured because they felt like they could miss something, right? Maybe there's areas that they're going to miss that either of those two don't capture. But once it started, now they feel like that is absolutely key, because their fundamental belief these days, and I think it's a really good example, is that they do not have a monopoly on talent. They do not have a monopoly on good ideas. So they need to engage with open ecosystems and people outside their company to future-proof their business. And to do that, you also have to think about creating nimble teams. There's a lot of research being done that the large enterprises are really going to face a lot more struggle than someone who's smaller. The smaller teams, even if it's just a smaller team inside a big company, these smaller teams are going to be able to be more nimble and adapt and come up with new or better, more resilient ideas over the long run. So how do you engage with the startup community, because this is a great place to find small teams. And the way to do that successfully, I believe, we have a lot of examples of partners all throughout the world, and we've done some studies. It's usually the big companies that are most engaged across all the different activities that are the most robust and get the most value out of these innovation activities. So they have a venture function, which is looking to strategically invest in areas to learn from those and to give those their own resources to their portfolio companies to help scale them and give them maybe some competitive advantages in their own marketplaces. They're also doing a lot of co-development with smart peoples before the idea. Maybe this is with academics and universities and pre-commercialization, where you go and you get some really tough problems. There's no market solutions and you build solutions together. They're also doing acquisitions and M&A, and they're working on partnerships. They're just becoming customers of these startups. So big companies who have learned to do a lot of these activities as part of their everyday business and not just a special team have done really well, we believe, and we've seen throughout time, in creating a lasting ecosystem, right, around their business and around their consumers. So there's also some great resources I can point you towards besides Plug and Play, obviously, in our great groups of startups. There's books like the Corporate Venturing Survival Guide in association, which is the Global Corporate Venturing and Innovation Group. They do a lot of research and publications around that. You're already taking a great step here with the inspirational tour. These things are great. Just make sure this leads to some actionable result for you, right? Maybe there's something after the inspiration that happens that you go and discuss on your debrief that you say, well, we should really, these technologies areas are great and we should do something here. Also, there may be opportunities to really transform our own company.
Thank you. Also, as I understand that Intersport could look as a company out for potential startups to also to seed, so to say, well, to incorporate into the Intersport ecosystem in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's many models to do that. It's great if you're going to start out, it's great to tie it to a strategic area that's already important to you. So if it's the rental ecosystem, that's really important. If it's the travel experience, there's certain pillars in there. And if you focus on startups that are helping do something new or core to that, usually that's great because they can add value right away. If you're looking to invest, maybe not so core because you don't want to compete with your internal company. So maybe there's an adjacent business model or something where you just want to learn about. It's a great one for investing. But certainly working with startups, bringing them in, you learn a tremendous amount, and we've seen a lot of value out of that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
Well, Andy, Rob, thank you so much. I don't want to abuse your time over capacity. Thank you so much for coming here, for taking time, for sharing your forecast, your foresight, your visions, your ideas, your projects. I really enjoyed the session. I feel like it has so many different aspects, from nerdy data to very broad visions about the future of retail.
Fantastic. Well, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting us. It's great to meet you all.
Have a wonderful
thank you
rest
so
of your
much.
days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Auf Wiedersehen.